Trey, just to kind of hit the call, off, obviously conventions around the corner. We have a lot of, newer agents on the call as well. And I just wanted you to kind of speak to, because I know that this has really opened my eyes, like, over the years. When you initially got started in this business and kind of like, the process you went through, so to say, it wasn't easy every day, like it isn't for most of us. And just almost like in a way, being able to relate to, hey, it wasn't always easy in the beginning, but I persevered and, kind of this is how I got through it type of deal.
Yeah. I well, thanks for having me on. First of all, I always like talking to you guys. You guys are my favorite. I am going to be at Jaws meet and greet, by the way. And I said
Thank
no to
you.
others so I could come hang out with you guys. So, um, and one day I might even move to Boston, but I've never been there in winter. So I'll wait until I say that. Wait until
That's
I go in
fair.
winter before I make a decision. Um, I'm actually reliving a lot of it right now, getting started because I didn't sell for a couple years solid. Like I Like when I say I didn't sell, I mean I didn't sell. I was just traveling around doing whatever it was I was doing and working the business the best I could. But it's different when you aren't personally selling. And I have been personally selling. I've helped over 10 families in January. I'm doing it all on the phone, which is super uncomfortable. I made a lot of mistakes. I've learned a lot from the process, but I've really reminded myself of what it was like in the very beginning and how important the most important thing is getting to these events where there's people. Like, you know, we had an event in Boston and there was, 27 people, 47 people, whatever it was. That was cool. But going to the national conference is the single most important thing you can do. It really is. My goal when I recruit, I don't call anyone recruited or in the business or any of that until they get to the national conference. Like if I recruit you in January and you don't go to the national conference in February, I don't really consider you a recruit until next February when you do go. Um, because that'll do more for you than any of these Zoom calls, than any private phone calls, than any one-on-one meetings, than any role plays, than any recordings, any YouTube videos. And you say, why is that? I don't want to go to a rah-rah. Is it a cult? Like people said all these things to me, and what I realized was the beauty of FFL. Like when they write the book on this, if they write a book about this, the number one thing, chapter one will be, well, I got too deep there. I don't know what chapter one's gonna be. There's gonna be a chapter in there about learning from people that are actually doing it. The Sean Mike way of doing this is if you don't do it, you don't talk. Like if you like Marisa and Rami are keynote speakers at the event, and you guys all know Marisa and Rami. And like a prophet is never a prophet in their own land, right? You guys know them, but there's people all across the country that as soon as Marisa and Rami get up and talk about how they issue so much business, they're going to take things away from that we all take for granted because we know them and see them all the time. Now, the flip side of that is you're going to go hear from somebody like Juan Franco, who's 60 years old, who English is a second language, who creates a lot of content on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and sells only IULs. And he's going to say a lot of the same stuff that Marisa and Rami say, but it's going to hit you completely different. And that's how it works. Like I don't I don't know how better to describe it, but it's actually quite magical. I remember when I went to my first one, they were like, "Hey, you need to go to Atlanta." It's like Atlanta. I've never been to Atlanta. Like this sounds great. So they're like, it's going to be the biggest event. And I grew up in my adult life in marketing events. Like I've been to so many freaking conventions and conferences and different things for everything, everything. I did multi-level marketing for years. We always had it. And those were conferences where it was a cult. They were trying to brainwash you. Like that's actually what they did. So I was like, oh yeah, let's go. Woohoo. I thought it was good. And I remember I showed up to this event and we say there was 200 people at the first one, and there wasn't. There was about 120 people and half of them were spouses. And I learned so much about selling insurance at that event I went from not selling to selling, helping 20 families a month immediately, like immediately when it happened. And the thing it did for me was I realized I get chills thinking about it, but when they did the award ceremony, now last year, just to put this in context, to be in the top 1,000 agents at FFL last year, you had to personally help 200 families by yourself, which would be $200,000 of premium. That would get you in the top 1,000 from corporate down. You had $200,000 of premium. Okay. To give you an idea, there's IMOs that claim to be our competitors where the top 50 aren't over 200. Now, that's amazing, right? Like you think, well, that's unbelievable. But at the first one, maybe there was 80 actual agents there. And I swear, 65 of them, 72 of them got up and got recognized for helping over 100 families. And it freaked me out because I did the math. I did like the commission math. Like my kids, my son Harper is in junior high and he's all geeked up on math. He's like, I'm taking a college math class and I got this computer that'll do coefficients. Like, you don't need a coefficient to calculate commissions. You know, like it's just that's a little much. You don't need to do that. It's just how you calculate. So I knew how to calculate commissions at the first conference. And I realized that these people with the FFL comp were depositing a lot of money. Like 94% of the room got up and sold that much insurance. And the rest were like the 12 of us that were new. You know, that's how it started. But we never got away from production first. This is how we train you to sell a lot of insurance. This is what you say. Now, I will admit this to you. There was a period of time where we might have lost that a little bit. We might have. That's as far as I'll admit to it. But what I can tell you is we've never had it back with the clarity like we have it back right now. We have a model that we know works. We know what the highest persistency business is. We know who has the highest persistency. We know what's working. We know what leads. We know how to get people started. We know how to keep people unified. The recognition is going to be like nothing you've ever seen at FFL. This will be the best recognition we've ever had by far. I have seen a lot of what's going to happen. The empowerment that you'll get from it, the realization that, because here's what happens. You show up to this event and you're going to see people that some of them look like you, some of them are your age, some of them are married and kids, and some don't have kids, and some aren't married. And there's going to be a ton of people you can relate to that are going to be like you, and there's going to be a ton of people that are nothing like you that are having success. And you're going to think to yourself, if they could do it, I could do it. Because what you'll realize is there's no measure for the human heart. Like, you can't go out and hunt an agent and be like, oh, that's what one looks like. That's what they did before for work. You know, this is like, you can't do that because there's no measure for the human heart. And you're going to find the similarities in all the different stories. And it's not going to be a bunch of like, I was broke and now I'm not, and look at me. And it's not like that. It's wholly designed for the people in the audience to leave and be able to sell a lot more insurance than what they sold when they got there. And to give you some ideas on what you need to be thinking about before you show up. First of all, if you got floor tickets, which if you didn't get floor tickets, I would still try to get them. Like, still try to get them, whatever that is, ffl.dreamcenter.org, and see if they'll let you buy some. It's $150, 100% donation to the Dream Center, and you sit in the section on the floor where Sean is going to give away leads. And last year we gave away, they're saying 750,000. I'm telling you, it was closer to 900,000. I think they scaled it back because I don't know. I think he gave away 900,000 because I literally was trying to add while it was happening. He says 750. Either way, that's a lot of leads. Okay, so the only people that get leads are the people sitting in these sections. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you are sitting in those seats, make sure that you're making some kind of crazy sign or dressing up crazy or doing something to get attention, so that Sean Mike pays attention to you and gives you $1,000 or $4,000 or however many thousands of dollars worth of leads. The leads in the ILC Okay, I'm gonna break it down for you. ILC, IUL social media leads are a game changer. I wrote $9,600 in premium off those this week. And I don't even think 3 weeks ago, I've been in insurance for, and I used to sell IULs. I sell occasionally, but I couldn't even spell IUL. I went through that boot camp, I bought the leads. That mess works. I used to not ever be able to get somebody on Zoom. I get these IUL ones to show up on Zoom because I did what they told me at the training. So those leads are amazing. Like you get a voucher for those puppies. Um, Ethos abandoned cart leads. I was in Dominic Rogers' office last week and I watched him write like 10 policies in a day and a half just from those on the phone, right? Those count. You can get those with the lead voucher that you're going to be able to get if you sit in these special seats. So there's a whole bunch of, I could take the whole call and just go through the power of the ILC and why it's so great. But what was funny last year, okay, at this, one of the people that got these free leads, there was this girl on Mac Agabor's team that was dressed up like a unicorn. And she had a sign with Sean Mike's freshman high school jersey on it for baseball. What the heck? And he was like, that's a little creepy. How'd she get that? And so there was a whole story about how she got it, like a cousin that was married to somebody that went to junior high with him and had the yearbook picture, the whole thing. Like, oh, you got to make sure you give her some leads. So anyway, I don't think any of y'all would be as creative as that. It was pretty amazing. But yeah,
That was.
conference, get there, take notes. The meetings after the meetings, the events after the events, don't go there and just hang out with the people that you hang out with all the time. Like Aphrodite, if Marisa doesn't talk to you at the conference, that's okay. I pick Aphrodite because I know y'all are friends. But like she ain't going to talk to you. She's going to learn from people she don't get to talk to all the time. Like Heather, if Christina don't talk to you at the conference, that's okay. Christina, if Heather doesn't talk to you at the conference, that's okay.
Heck
I
no,
call
we're
y'all out.
gonna hug. I can't wait to see everybody.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is these are people that you associate with all the time, right? So what you want to do when you go there, be prepared to associate with people that you want to learn from in the business, like Shadi. Shadi would be a great person to talk to. Calvin Wright would be a great person to talk to. Zach Trudowski would be a great person to talk to. Uh, Serge
Right.
would be a great person to talk to. I mean, there's a whole list. Like you could go through, and what I would do is I would prepare. Like if I get an opportunity to ask Kobe 5 questions, what are my 5 questions for him? What are my 5 questions if I get a chance to talk to Steve Giordano that I need to know, that I can't get anywhere else? Like, and be prepared to ask those questions. And when you ask the questions, just listen. You don't have to validate and tell them what you're doing. I tell you what, the second conference I ever went to, I got a chance to do that with Mark Mead, and I was running nothing but final expense appointments. And I went up to Mark Mead after one of the breakouts, and I said, "They do a lot of training on the mortgage protection appointments. Do you run final expense?" He says, "Yes." I go, "How's it different than mortgage?" He goes, "It takes a lot less time." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because I don't need to know as much." I go, "How long is the average appointment?" He goes, "About 30 minutes." So I booked 2 an hour because they don't show up a lot. And I was like, huh. And that was doing it in person. And he helped over 500 families that year, and it was mostly final expense. And he was the first person to ever do that, by the way. Nobody else did that before he did that. But that, I went home and started helping 20 families a month on final expense when I wasn't doing that before from information I was able to get at the meeting. So be prepared to ask people questions. Everybody at FFL wants to help. That's the truth. Um, don't take people's time for granted. Don't waste their time. If they do take time to somebody that's producing a lot, if they take, be grateful, glean what you can from it. Um, there's a ton
And
of other stuff.
Trey,
Yeah.
just while you're kind of hitting on this too, because I know, like, my first convention, for example, I was overwhelmed. I was like, I want to talk to this person, that person, but I was timid, right? I was like, almost like, what do I say when I go up to them, right? Which kind of sounds now in, hindsight kind of silly because, like you said, we all do want to help each other. We're all going there with one goal, so to say, which is help each other get better and come out of there stronger. But if, you're going to approach somebody that you don't know and you're a brand new agent, Trey, like what are you walking up and saying? Like what's your like what's a nice easy intro that's non-aggressive? Like
Say, hey, number one agent, I'm whatever your name is, I'm brand new. Trey told me to come find you. I have 3 questions.
oh,
Like, just use me.
love it.
Nobody's gonna get mad if I send you up to someone, and nobody's gonna get mad either. You know, I'm actually pretty socially awkward, and I'm very uh, introverted, and I was scared to talk. I mean, I don't, you know, I was scared to approach people and all kinds of stuff in the beginning. And now that I've been around the business for a while, and people come up and ask me questions, I realize that people in the position to answer your questions want to answer your questions, and they aren't at all bothered by the fact that you're approaching them. They kind of expect you to. They want you to because they want to help. So yeah, but just blame it on me. Be like, Sean Mike said to find the best producer I could and ask him questions, and then I saw you. Trey told me to come ask you questions. Nobody's going to be
Right.
like, okay, yeah, shoot, what you got? I mean, it's all good.
Exactly. That's what we're there to do, guys. So don't be scared to approach people. Just like Trey said, just walk right out. That's what everyone's expecting. So
Amen. Okay, so yeah, a big part of going from not knowing what to do and learning what to do is going to the conferences. Another big part is just not being so hard on yourself. The reality is in this, you got to give yourself a year. You can make money along the way, but your number one goal is just to survive a year. Like if you can get through the first year, you can be really successful. In fact, I don't know the person that's been actively making phone calls and selling insurance for 2, 3, 4 years that's not wildly successful at this, that can't literally just cash their check every week. Like it becomes predictable. It isn't a chore anymore where you have this fear that it's not going to work. It's as secure as you are. So the person that sticks around for years never thinks they have it all figured out, is always seeking new knowledge, new understanding, new experience, um, who's humble, who isn't afraid to fail, and isn't afraid to invest money, that person succeeds every time. Like I don't know the person that fits that bill that isn't writing a tremendous amount of premium or isn't Hall of Fame even, or it doesn't have a huge team, like or both. So the next thing mindset wise is just to make sure you give yourself enough time to figure it out. Um, that's what it's about. It's about doing the consistent, persistent things long enough. And if you do those things long enough, what's hard to do now will become hard for you not to do. You do improve at this and you do get better. And then you look back and you think, wow, I wasn't, nobody's as far off as you think you are. You know, I remember, I won't call anybody by name. There's people on this call that, you know, I had conversations with a week before it was like it was going to be all over. And then next thing you know, they're helping, 50 families a month. And it can change just like that. It really can. You're not as far off as you think you are. Profitability, that's another huge thing. A big thing I learned early on in the business is it's not so much who you listen to as much as it is who not to listen to. Like there's people that might sell a lot of insurance, but they aren't profitable. So what I would be seeking out, and a big focus of this conference is going to be profitability. Like putting you in front of the people who are actually making a lot of money, net income, not just selling a lot. I remember the first conference, there's a guy, he's not with us anymore. He was out 5 months after the first conference. But they put him on stage, talked about how much he sold. He sold a ton, just none of it stuck. Like literally none of it stuck. And he was a great speaker. He had all the right stuff to say. He looked good, smelled good, had great jokes. He's cool. And who knows where he is now? He's probably selling timeshares. Um, you know, and then there were other people. There were other people. I remember Paul. It's fair to talk about Paul. You talk about Paul. I had an opportunity to share an office with Paul for years, and I was very negative as far as like thinking that everybody that bought a policy canceled, because that's what happened to me. Like every policy I sold in the beginning, they all canceled, all of them, like literally. Like And I couldn't figure out what I was like, what the heck? Everybody just must have 12% persistency. Like 9 out of 10 must fall off the books because that's the way it was for me. And I remember Paul would come into the office every Thursday and he would just drop a stack of applications on the desk and it would make a noise like boom, you know? And I would think, yeah, here you go again. Help 20 families again for the week. He has to do that because only 2 of those are going to stick. But that's okay. He's making money, but he has to sell 20 because only 2 stick. And then that year at the conference, America gave out a persistency award, and that fool had 96% persistency. And it was what was crazy was being in the office all the time, I would hear people calling to cancel. Like they would call and be like, Paul, we don't want anymore. And then he's like, okay, I just got to get back out there. And he would like set an appointment to get back in front of them and put them in the schedule. And he would show back up and he would keep those on the books. And I thought, yeah, right. Everybody cancels. That isn't like I had major trust issues. And but that was somebody who had incredible persistency the entire time. But he wasn't the cool, charismatic guy on stage that year. It was this other dude. You know what I mean? So be careful who you listen to. I promise you, everybody's vetted. Nobody's going to get up there and get to talk to you about something if they have terrible persistency and they're not making money. That's a mistake we haven't made since 2015. But even outside of that, you know, in the personal conversation, seek out people that, you know, will steer you correctly. Just because somebody's really high up on the leaderboard, they may not be the best person to listen to. I don't know. What was the rest of your question, Marisa? I feel like I'm all over the place, but
you let it rip, to be honest. And I love how you talked about, you know, if you stay in this business for a year, like you're gonna adapt and evolve to it. Like if you don't, it's like because like you said you were in the business
right.
and like
Yeah.
before doing anything, so to say. And I think that there's a lot of power in that.
No, there definitely is. And I'll tell you something else that we don't talk about a lot. But in the beginning of FFL, this is the way it was. Okay. So don't get mad at me because I'm about to tell you how it used to be. And the more I think of it, yeah, I'm so grateful it was like this. Like, you know, I talk about the person that stays around a year, and if they stay around, they make money and they figure it out. But listen, like, there's people that actually shouldn't do this, you know? And what you have to figure out early on, you have to be honest with yourself. Am I really doing everything I can do? Am I really investing in the leads? Am I really doing all the stuff? Am I really showing up to all the calls? And if you are, and it's been 90 days and you can't figure out how to issue 20, probably should do something else. And that's okay because this is about putting your family first. Like we're not trying to, the biggest thing that we fought against in the beginning was the idea of the person that just showed up to the meetings and didn't make money. Like we didn't want a company of people that didn't make money. We hated that. That's where a lot of us came from. We came from a place where people would show up to the meetings every week and no one made money. And so, but people would just string people along. That's not what this is for. This is for family first. This is to put your family first. If in 90 days you aren't making enough money to support your family, you need to figure something out. Like that's what we used to tell folks. If you can't issue 20K in 90 days, now my first 90 days in insurance, I didn't issue 20K, but I was honest with myself about the process and I knew I was making progress toward it. I knew I would figure it out. I was just a little slower, but I was doing what I thought was my best. And when I realized it wasn't my best, I made changes to get better. But I allowed people to have honest conversations with me and I had honest conversations with myself. And I think as leaders, one of the things we got away from, me personally, is I don't call people on things anymore. You know, I stopped. I didn't want to offend people. Like, it's been 2 years, Bob. Like, I know you lost your house and you lost your car and you got $5,500 in chargebacks with every carrier, but this is going to be the year. No, I should have just, Bob, like, you should just go get a job because this isn't going to work for you. And that's okay. Like when you realize that's an option, you'll try harder. And when we realize that this isn't for everybody, we'll stop spending time with people that are never going to do it anyway. Now, in the beginning, we ran people off if they didn't hit the look. Like if you didn't hit this, like you should quit because we didn't have any leads. So it's like, you know, if Michelle is in and she ain't hitting the number and she's using leads, like, let's get rid of Michelle. She ain't gonna figure this out. It's been 9 days. Michelle's out. Now you get those leads back, I'll go run them because I can sell them. That's how it was in the beginning. And then we got around to like, okay, well, we don't necessarily need to run them off because we got plenty of leads, but you don't have to spend all your time with the person that isn't going to do it anyway. The most refreshing thing in this business is when you find the people that are going to do it with or without you and you actually enjoy it. That's what it's about. And as a producer, the thing you got to always be asking yourself is am I a thorn in the side or am I actually adding value to the team? Like, you know, I talk to people that want to complain a lot, right? Like by the time it gets to me, they're really complaining. That's, it's like, if it gets past Marisa, they're really complaining. It's hard to get past Marisa. It's hard to get past Christina. But I think it's past them, like they're complaining. And it's always just, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, I expected this, I expected that. And the number one thing you could do to make sure that you're not one of those people that don't make it is just ask yourself, am I adding value to the team or am I a thorn in the side? Am I carrying my own weight or not? Like, a big part of being successful at this long term is just proper self-reflection, you know? Like, that's what it is. It's and not being afraid and then embracing people that'll tell you the truth. Like, a big trap is just people that'll always tell you what you want to hear and always try to encourage you and always try to pep you up, and oh, it's going to be okay. Tomorrow it'll work. It's probably not going to work tomorrow either. Like, you didn't dial it all today. Unless something changes, you probably aren't going to dial tomorrow either. You keep going down this path, you're going to lose everything. Your wife's going to leave you. And she should, because you're acting like a loser. Now, you don't have to, I said acting like a loser. It's not permanent, but I'd rather somebody tell me that than to say, hey, just got to make more phone calls, just got to practice the script more. You just got to, no, it's like, listen, here's what the problem is. You're pretending you're working and you're really not, and you're not, but you're really excited about convincing me that you are. So as soon as we get over the fact that I don't really care if you are or not, I just want to see you be successful, either here or somewhere else. So once we know that I'm actually on your side, like, you don't have to try to trick me. You just need to be honest. Does that make sense? Now, whenever you can do that with yourself, that's when you really start making strides in the business. And here's the other thing, not getting super emotional. That's the other thing I see people like here. If you want to be really successful at FFL or anywhere else, you're going to have to learn to master your emotions and let stuff go and let stuff slide. Not everything's worth fighting over. Not everything's the end of the world. Even people that tick you off and make you mad, you could hate them for like weeks. Like, whatever. Doesn't really matter. I told Andrew early on, I was like, the only person I care about is Dre and the kids. That's the only people I care about. So there's nothing you can do that's actually going to make me hate you because I'm indifferent. It's like that was my mindset. People say, you said that? Yes. And that's the deal, guys. Like, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Don't get mad at the people that are trying to help you, that challenge you. You know how many people I talk to, like, well, I used to work with so-and-so, and like, they were just mad that I wasn't on live dials, and they told me I should quit, and it wasn't going to work for me. And I must not love my family because I'm being a lazy bum. And, I can't miss a baseball game. I'm sorry, but I am not going to miss a baseball game. I only have 15 more baseball games for my son, and I can't miss those because that's like super important. And I go, well, you only have 2 more house payments you can miss before they repossess it. So can you believe he said that to me? I'm really angry. And I always thought to myself, well, that's a really loving thing for them to say. Because if they didn't care, they would just say, okay, well, good luck. And they would be on the phone with you. Like, confrontation means that someone cares. And I'll leave you with this. Any conflict that you guys have in this business, and this helps with customers too. This is where my life changed in insurance sales. because I'm here, the customer's here, and people think I need to get them to buy. So what do we have to do? We have to meet in the middle and agree. And here's what would happen. I'm here and I'm like, customer, come here, come here. And then the customer's like, no. And I'd be like, what do you mean no? And the customer's like, I'm not coming over there. And I'm like, customer, please come over here. And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, I hate you. You're stupid. And like, you're stupid too. Get out. And that's how the conflict happened, right? And then I'd go to another customer. I'd be like, come here. I'd be like, no, I don't want to. Crap. And then I'd say, okay, well, if you come here, then I'll come here, and then you come here and I come here, and then we meet in the middle, and then they buy it and they cancel the next day because we met in the middle. So here's what happened. Instead of getting mad at the customer, I started going, hey, how come all the customers I asked to come to me don't come to me? What is it that I'm doing wrong? What do I need to change? And why does it bother me so much that when I ask them to come to me, they don't come? Like, what is it about me that bothers me so much that they don't come? How can I change that? And I started thinking about all the stuff that I could change about me. So then I was like, customer, come here. And the customer's like, no. And I was like, okay, I'll come to you. That's what happened. Okay, I'll come to you. I didn't get offended by it. And then all of a sudden, like, now I'm over here, and the next time I ask the customer something, they go, oh, okay, I'll come to you. Because we didn't meet in the middle, we didn't compromise. We both got what we want, right? Like, I want the customer to come to me. The customer wants insurance, but he don't want to come. So I just go to him. How did I bridge the gap? By fixing me. By asking myself, what do I need to do different? Why does this bother me so much? It doesn't mean he doesn't like me. It doesn't mean he hates me. It doesn't mean that he doesn't trust me. It doesn't mean that, customer, what's your social? No. Why don't you want to give me your social? Don't you know who I am? Why don't you Google me? Here's my license. Aren't you a jerk? Why are you being a jerk to me? I hate you. Like, you go through this whole thing. Like, no, it's like, customer, why don't you give me your social? No. Okay. I wonder why when I ask people to give me their social, they don't want to do it. You know, what can I change? How can I make sure that he feels comfortable enough before I ask for the social? And then if he doesn't give me the social, what do? I go to him, you know? And now it's like, build more rapport, whatever it is. Does this make any sense what I'm saying at all? Because I've never said this before. I just made this is new stuff, this new material.
It does make complete sense because you're saying like it's a two-way street. Like at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna have my win, if you will, which is helping that client, and the client's gonna have their win by being able to talk to me in ease with questions. And then if I'm not able to meet, like we're not able to ever meet in the middle, so to say, like it doesn't make sense for you to not look at yourself and say, hey, what could I do better? Versus letting it spill onto the next person, the next person, the next person, right?
So if I avoid getting super emotional, then what that allows me to do is make the right changes so that I could bridge the gap. Right? That's what I'm trying to say. And that works in all relationships, by the way. So when you're dealing with agents, because they're going to make you mad and you're going to make them mad and they're going to want things and they're going to demand things and there's all kinds of stuff that's going to happen and you're going to have to overlook it like all the time. And then people say, well, I don't want to be walked on because look, you're going to have to give up a lot of the things that we stand on that really don't matter anyway. Like you got to learn how to pick your battles. And that's the biggest thing that I changed from the very beginning is I used to be the person, like my nose has been broken 4 times. Apparently, luckily I've never fought someone with a good left hook because it would probably straighten me out because it's always this direction. But how I dealt with conflict, I would get super emotional and make these crazy stands on just everything. Like everything is the end of the world, and I got to be right. And then I realized, dude, sometimes I don't have to be right, and sometimes neither one of us is right anyway, and most of the time it doesn't matter. Like I don't have to. You have to learn to pick your battles. And that's true with clients too. I mean, sometimes especially in home, I haven't had so much battles on the phone because I don't know how to battle on the phone. Like if I battle on the phone, they just hang up. Like, but I'd have battles in the home where it was like, dude, I just twisted this guy's arm and begged him, and then he still said no, and it messed me up for like 2 weeks. So finally, I was just like, I just need more appointments. Like, I shouldn't have to fight this hard all the time. Like, it's not that deep. Like, you don't want to do it. I can't want it more than you want it. Like, okay, cool. I'll go see somebody else then. Anything else I can help you with before I go? And once I figured that out, taking the emotion out of it, what that really looked like, learning to pick my battles. Not everything's the end of the world. Um, things really started to change. Whereas my normal course of action as an adult would be get super emotional, blow the whole thing up, and start over somewhere else. And I did that for 15 years consistently. I was really good at it before I got to FFL. So the number one commitment I made at FFL is no matter what, they're not going to get me to quit. I don't care how much they make me hate them. Like that was my mindset. Like I don't care what these people do. This works. So I don't care if they like me. I don't need to like them. Like I was super, like it sounds weird because nobody thinks of me like that, but I was really, really jaded in the beginning. But I was just convinced over the fact that like there's nothing they can do to get me to go away. So I would just encourage y'all to think that. And the big thing is make sure you go to the conference. So,
Absolutely. I mean, emotion at the end of the day, it's going to dictate our behaviors, our feelings, our thoughts, and it's going to prolong to the next day, the next week, the next month. And Trey, you're like the master of this, and I always said, like, I'm not consistent. You're like, nope, you're consistently doing something, whether it's right, wrong, indifferent. So, like, being able to pick those habits and being able to look at ourselves and self-reflect and not blame the client. Like, oh, well, obviously John just doesn't get it and get upset for 30 minutes versus, hey, could I have framed a bit better to make sure I'm not getting that objection, so to say. And like Trey said, like, I mean, it works hand in hand with everything and all ties. So this was it was an amazing call. It was an insightful call. And it was a friendly reminder to really just like, you got to dig deep within yourself and know what you want to be able to dictate what you're going to get out of this business. And that's huge, Trey. You've been instrumental.